wonderful day for me. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And I got real excited about it. And how do you feel about today? You get a chance to give something to a community of believers for the most part. They're a community of believers from someone who was very important and special in your life, and you're sharing that gift today with this fishing equipment. How does that make you feel?
Well, it makes me really excited because fishing was so important to Paul. And what I'm sensing is that Paul's love for fishing is going to be carried on with these young people. And there's nothing as important as investing in young people. So while I probably could have sold this equipment, that meant nothing to me. In fact, I heard about your ministry right after Paul, my husband, died in October, and I lost the information. But just by being led by the Holy Spirit, I found your name again. And I was so excited. And when I contacted you and you said you were interested in it, then I was really excited because of Paul's love for fishing. Because I realized that Paul's life is going to live on and his love is going to live on in these kids. And that's what makes me so excited.
If we could ever understand what it means to be able to spend time with young people. Did Paul spend a lot of time with young people?
He did not spend a lot of time with a lot of young people. He certainly spent time with our sons. But the thing I noticed about Paul when I'd go fishing with him, and I'm not a fisher person, so I would sit and read, or he would always walk along the bank. He would talk to kids. And he even taught a few kids how to fish, because you have to sort of learn if you want to really catch fish. There's a difference between throwing a line out and catching fish. And so he would teach young kids to have the patience to show them how to throw it out and watch the bobber and watch your line. And I think that excited him to see kids learning to fish because his dad taught him how to fish, and he taught our sons how to fish. So that's how I think he invested in young people.
Now, I don't want to create an issue here in terms of family, but which son is the better fisherman?
Well, I think our youngest son is the one that likes to fish. Our older son is a hunter. He's a hunter. So our younger son was the one that seems to have liked fishing. And Paul took them hunting as well, but Paul did not, when the boys were older, they went with other neighbors hunting. Paul did not actually go and shoot because Paul's heart was a fisherman. He was a fisherman. He loved to fish. And I think part of what he loved about fishing was the quietness of it. You can sit there and be quiet. You can commune with God if you want. You can watch nature. It's almost like putting your life on a pause. We live in a very fast-paced world. Kids today, everything's instantaneous, but when you start to fish, you have to quiet down. You have to sit and be quiet. You have to watch your bobber. You have to look around. You can see the water. And those were that's one of the things that Paul really liked about fishing.
One of the things that I find disturbing is that in Pennsylvania, hunting and fishing is a big sport. Mm-hmm. And for those who participate, their lives are a lot fuller. Their lives are a lot richer. And what happens, I think, sometimes with being in the city and you don't have that kind of outlet, if it's basketball, there's a very violent nature there in terms of competition. Same with football. Matter of fact, the more you hit somebody and hurt them, the better you're paid. But with fishing, there's a competitive side of it, but it doesn't come to any kind of violent activity. You don't have to hurt anybody in order to win. I think those kind of things make a difference in the kind of people that we are. And my prayer is that we will begin to cultivate that kind of information with our young people in the inner city, because you talk about pressure. The pressure's there in the inner city, mm-hmm. and kids just don't have a good outlet. It's just not there. Tell me something here. And when I look at family, you have two sons. You have two sons. What is it like on the holidays, getting together with your family? What is it like now?
Well, the families are very special. Holidays are always special. We always try to get together as a family to do things. And family is really your support system. I found that out when Paul died. People say, if you need anything, ask us. But really, it's your family that are the ones that are there. And they're the ones you feel free to ask, because you don't really feel free. And so that's a family. And I think, too, part of that relating to fishing, it's kids have to have someone take them fishing. So you have a dad or an uncle or a big brother or somebody that actually takes you to a place to fish. So it becomes like an extended family to those kind of kids. And that's one of the things, because inner city children do not have a lake. They can go to the river perhaps, but they don't have a lake where they can just go and throw a rod in after school or at times. So that's what's important about family or extended family. I particularly think with inner city kids, is having someone come alongside them and take them fishing. Show them how to put a worm on, how to throw a rod, how to throw a line out. That's really important. But back to your original question, yes, family is really important to me. It was important to Paul as well.
If right now the city is advocating that this river is for children to fish in, would you take your young sons when they were little to the river to fish?
I don't think we ever took them. I'm not sure. I don't think Paul ever took them to the river to fish, and I don't know. I can't recall that he ever did. We do have a river close by down here, and but I don't recall that he ever. But I think he might. But it was so much easier to take them, get them in a car, and take them to North Park. That was where Paul would take our boys fishing, because that's where his dad took him fishing.
So if you had an option between the lake and the river, which one would you choose?
Oh, absolutely the lake. The lake.
Do you think God put those lakes there because he didn't know what else to do with that land and that water and the fish in there? You think he just said, well, I'll just leave them over here?
No, I think the lakes are for our enjoyment. And there's something about, again, I said that before, there's something about going and sitting on the bank of a lake, listening to the water, watching what's going on around you. There's a peace that comes in that. There's a peacefulness. Even when I didn't fish, but I would sit by the lake, that was a very mentally restful time. It's a very restful time because it's not hurry up. Fishing is not a hurry up sport. Fishing is throwing your line out, sitting there watching for your bobber to bob, maybe pulling it back in, someone took your worm, and so you throw it out again. It's a slow pace compared to the pace that most people, and particularly children, live today.
Do you think fishing teaches us patience?
Oh, absolutely, because you have to be patient. One of our sons used to, when he first went fishing, he'd throw his line out and he couldn't wait. He'd reel it back in again, and he'd throw it back out. And Paul would say, you have to be patient. You have to wait for that bobber to bob. And so it does teach you. Maybe that's why I never liked to fish, because I'm sort of a more fast-paced person. So I couldn't sit there for long times. Paul could sit for hours and hours and fish. That was not for me. But I think, yes, it takes a lot of patience to be able to fish. Well, no, that's incorrect. It doesn't take a lot of patience to be able to fish. It takes a lot of patience to be able to wait to catch a fish. That's the difference.
I heard an expression from one of, he's a teacher, and he said, fishing teaches kids, it gives them the opportunity to develop grit. And grit is what we need in order to sometimes when we come against something that is against us, to walk through it, to get to the other side where we can see some success. One of the things that is happening today is that a lot of our kids are not exercising grit. They, for some reason or the other, they give up too soon. Do you think that maybe that is something that is missing in our development, say early childhood development, is that children are looking for that instant gratification. They got to have it right now. Computers give it to you right now. But fishing doesn't.
No, it doesn't. And that's really the way we live as a society. We're so fast paced, we want everything instantly. We, for instance, as teachers, we don't have, I'm not a teacher, but teachers tell me, children do not have to do research to find answers to things anymore. All they have to do is go to ask.com and instantly they have their answer.
Beautiful.
So I had not thought about that, but I think that teacher's correct, that it does teach grit and perseverance too.
Yes, yes, that's good. That's beautiful. I like that ask.com. I never thought about that. And life's not that way. Life doesn't give you instant answers.
No.
You have to walk
No,
through
it
some things sometimes.
No, it doesn't.
Wow. Yeah, I have a picture of Paul with this great big. It looks like it's a walleye or pike, but tell me about that. Where was that? Was that here in this area?
It probably was in Canada. He went to Canada a couple times. It looked to me from the picture like he might have been on a charter boat fishing. And he did that several times. He just absolutely loved that. He loved to go out on, and he had his picture taken with the fish, so I assume that was the prize fish of the day. Paul always seemed to catch the most fish or the biggest fish. And I think it was because fishing is also can be a skill. He knew just how to do it. He knew how to put the right bait on his line. He knew he had the patience. My goodness, he had such patience to fish. And he knew how to work that fish into the shore or into the boat.
Right.
So that that was one of his favorite pictures, and it's one of my favorite now.
Right. Yeah, and it's one of my favorite because I've had a chance to look and meet the family, and that's a beautiful thing about what the good news. This is an example of the gospel, which is good news. This is an example of that and how that can breed other things from simple act of being involved, caring, having a love for Christ that generates a love for your fellow man.
Similar to fishing, you're in the woods, and I'm in the woods in the morning, and it's peaceful and quiet, and I spend a lot of time praying. Just
Does that kind of I'm sorry.
Just being with nature.
Yeah. Being with nature is that important enough that you would want to see the inner city kids, the inner city youth who wake up to sometimes the sirens, sometimes the shootings, sometimes just the bad news. You think being with nature, finding more time in nature would help calm the nerve?
It does. It would, I think, and fishing is especially good. I mean, when you're talking about hunting, now you're talking about firearms, which isn't a good mix, with a lot of troubled people. Where fishing is, you're in nature, you're quiet, you're patient. You can spend time alone or with a group, and you're using a fishing rod instead of a firearm.
Yeah.
So I think that's much more beneficial.
Yeah.
As an educating tool.
Yeah.
Enjoyment for the situation a lot of children are in.
Right. Yeah. How did Dad demonstrate who God was to you?
He wasn't a very vocal, I don't think, evangelist, so to speak. He was more of a lived by the way you were supposed to live, and that's what I got, from him, just being a family man. That's the way you're supposed to be, and it was through his actions, that was mostly demonstrated. I think he wasn't a very outgoing, like I said, a vocal evangelist, so to speak, but he, lived what we were supposed to live, and that was very evident, with both us boys, I think, with my mom and dad, was just seeing how they lived and how the relationship was.
In your opinion, has the violence got to a place where maybe we all need to just take a rod and go to the river?
Yeah, I think that would help. I think, part of the issue is that like I said earlier, it's just people grow up in a society where that's all they know, and it's sort of, a shame that, we don't value life the way we did. And there's one person who knows the answer to everything, and that's God, and He knows why all this is going on, unfortunately, and we just have to trust in Him that it's happening for some greater good in society. I don't know, but I know that the drugs and addiction are it's just a shame what it's doing to families, and that's the reason for a lot of violence. So hopefully, kids get out of that by going fishing and, being with other people who are good, and they can see the better side of people. And maybe next time they will, when they're confronted with somebody, that, they'll see the better side of that and maybe walk away.
In the urban areas, the lakes are all unusable, unfishable. But if you travel to the more affluent areas, you can do whatever you want to do in the lakes and the streams. Does that bother you that now maybe it's getting to the point where even for sports, you have to be able to have a certain kind of income, be of a certain income bracket, you got to be affluent to go fishing?
Well, I think that's, unfortunately the way our society has been going over the years. Like you said, now it's sort of, the cities are polluted and things are polluted, and we're just a very destructive people by nature. And, it's sad that there's that gap between affluent and good life and regular normal people and a bad life. It shouldn't have to be like that. But the one thing is you always have hope, and that's what gets the kids out of this society they're in now, is the hope that there's a better life. And I just think that's, with this and just the spirit of my dad being there and just his, hand touching these kids, I hope that makes a big difference. That he's looking down on them and smiling and knowing that we're trying to make a difference in these kids' lives every day. And I think that's part of like his business. He just loved to help people. I mean, sometimes he didn't get paid, but it didn't matter. He helped somebody, and that's what we need to do as a society. We need to start helping each other instead of being destructive.
Okay, Lois, there was a moment in the memorial service that touched you dearly. Could you tell me about that?
At the memorial service, when people were leaving, a young boy and his dad that I had never met before came up to talk to me, and it was the young boy, probably about 14 at the time, that really wanted to talk to me. And he said he wanted to come today to remember Paul because Paul had taught him how to fish. And the dad began to tell me that the dad and Paul were part of the fishing group that went every year on first day of trout season to our neighbor's place in the country where they would fish in the creek on first day of trout season. And apparently Paul taught this young boy how to fish. Paul would, of course, love to fish, but he must have taken the time to lay down his rod and help this boy learn to fish. And it may have been every year, I don't know whether, because they went there, was the same group every year. But this boy was so touched by Paul teaching him how to fish that he wanted to come with his dad to the memorial service. And as I say, this was a male thing. They got together. I didn't know them, but I was really touched by a young boy wanting to speak to me, who he did not know, about how Paul had affected his life.
Huh? Yeah.
One more on here, are you?
I'm just gonna hold this one down.
The frogmen are going to be putting these in. Scuba divers at the end of the month.
stop it.
Yep.
A position where there's enough resources in this community, foundations and other things that could help straighten this situation out. We're losing too many of our kids because they don't have, or they're not exercising the ability to make good decisions. And a lot of that happens when you fish, when you go sit down with a rod and reel and try to figure out how to get that creature on your hook. And if you're lucky enough, you got some dinner. And if you're not, well, what the heck, you try again and again and again. And isn't that what life is about? Don't give up. You try again and again and again. So that's the approach I'm taking in terms of doing these series of reports. For the next 6 months, we're going to try to get something going. We're going to try to find some help out here. And we need you. We need you to be a part of it. So stay with us as we find some answers. We're going to go fishing for answers and why Pittsburgh lakes are not stockable, why they're in such a bad situation that most of them you can't even do anything with, like Lake Elizabeth on the north side, Lake Carnegie in Highland Park. Conway Sportsman's Club, and I'm a member, have been now for about 13, 14 years. Unique organization. They just recently received an award from Mayor Bill Peduto. May 6, 2017 was Conway Sportsman's Club Fishing Derby Day in the city of Pittsburgh, America's most livable city. Well, we want to make sure it's that way for everybody. The club is providing this annual fishing derby for Pittsburgh youth for the last 20 years. 20 years they've been doing this. They do it out of the love for seeing kids fish and to catch that first fish and to be able to learn a little bit more about nature and learn a little bit more about themselves. And that's what it's about, learning about yourself. I'm also going to introduce you to the Caldwell family. The Caldwells are a unique bunch. Their mom and dad taught them how to fish. And because of that, they're passing that information on to the next generation. They are a group of people who love to play together, they pray together, they attend the same church. And I know they're having a reunion in July of this year, a family reunion. And that's not unique. There's a lot of families who have family reunions. But there's just something different about this particular family. And the more I'm around them, the more I'm impressed. And the more I take a deeper look at myself to examine what I'm doing to prevent that from happening in my environment. It's good sometimes to have a perspective on what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. And when we find out when we're doing something wrong, we need to make it right. So that's where I am on that issue. Let's Go Fishing is looking for stories. We're looking for stories and about adventures you've had with maybe family, friends, uh, fishing stories about the one that you caught. We don't want to hear no stories about what got away, because I know fishermen will tell some, well, I don't want to call them lies, but pretty close, big exaggerations. Anytime a 6-inch fish can become 16-inch, that's pretty close to a lie. But what we're looking for is something that you have experienced with someone in your neighborhood, in your family, and that you took delight in it, and you want to share that so that we can get an assessment of just how important fishing is in the Pittsburgh area. I'm impressed because May 6th was a cold day. I mean, it was a cold day, and when we normally have 200 plus kids out there, we had at least 100. We had at least 100. We had 9 youth groups of different churches, and this is not a denominational thing, so don't be calling me and ask me if the Baptists can come or the Pentecostal or anybody else. As long as you know Jesus, you can come. And if you don't know Jesus, we definitely want you to come. So definitely, this is open to anybody. Share it with your friends. Share it with your loved ones. But we're looking for things that talk about the social activity around fishing. And you can contact us. How do you contact us? Well, you can contact us on Facebook. We have an email address. The email is pancakes and Jesus 303 at gmail.com. Pancakes and Jesus 303 at gmail.com. We have also a post office box. The address is Let's Go Fishing, Post Office Box 19837, Penn Hills, Pennsylvania 15235. That's Let's Go Fishing, Post Office Box 19837, Penn Hills, Pennsylvania 15235. Now, I will take a phone call. If it's that important to you that you want to call me, you can. My cell is 412-335-5846. That's 412-335-5846. That's my cell. But please don't call me to ask me what is my email. There's not many Pancakes and Jesus ministries out there. So I feel honored to have that conversation with the Lord, and that's what he called me to. So my name is Reverend Spencer Simon Jr. I am a member of Eastminster Presbyterian Church. I am also chaplain at Conway Sportsman's Club in Butler County, Pennsylvania. And I'm also a child of God. And I love you. God bless you and keep you well. Until the next time, take care.